Here we are.
Here we
Hi,
are.
everybody, and happy Monday after a long Thanksgiving weekend. Hope y'all's Thanksgiving was awesome. Welcome, Rachel.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Yeah,
It's good Monday to get back to things, right?
right. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yes.
So we had family in and out, and we were both talking a little bit before, getting the homes back and
Yeah.
yeah.
When my son left for college yesterday, he went back to college, back to the
Mhm.
dorms last night. And the minute he left, I went into frantic cleaning mode. And I was
Yeah.
like, get all this junk out of here. It felt so good. And then, I turned on a little aromatherapy, turned all the
Mm.
lights on. And I was like,
Oh, that's awesome.
just me and my husband, it was like, peace.
It's
It's
great
not
to have.
me.
Yeah, it was so much fun. Yeah, we were here in Jefferson, and then
Mhm.
with family, and then we went over the hill and spent a little time in Bend, had a little
Oh,
pickleball
nice.
action. It was so much fun. Yeah,
Nice.
yeah, it was great.
Very fun.
It was great. All
Yeah.
right, so we are continuing on our journey through Michael Pollan's book, Food Rules.
Mhm.
And I think we're on chapter 27.
Yes.
Rachel, tell us about chapter 27.
Okay. Chapter 27 is eat animals that have themselves eaten well.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is this section of the book, if you're following along and you have the book, this is part 2 of the book, which is eat mostly plants. And
Mhm.
what's so cool though is he's talking about in this chapter, when you're eating animals, they should be also eating plants.
Right.
or or the types of animals we're eating should be eating plants,
That's right.
right?
Right. Yeah. That's an excellent point that when we do have animal products, first of all, we want them to be healthy animal, and then we want to eat animals that eat plants.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I was going to point out that animals can get diseased just like human beings can get
Yes.
diseased. And those diseases, a lot of them come from infectious disease, but a lot of times come from not eating healthy to begin with.
Right.
Right? Yeah.
So tell people, for people who are watching, what do you mean they can get disease? Because when people think about animal diseases, they think of um, like animal flu, or they think of infections that they need antibiotics for.
Right.
You're
Right.
also referring to a different type of disease.
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly. Well, I was just talking to a friend of mine
Mhm.
yesterday who happened to be, retired from the dairy industry, and he was told me that he saw fatty liver, in the cows. Um, and so, yeah, animals can get fatty liver, they can get diabetes, they can get heart disease, and so basically they're unhealthy. And the reason that they get these diseases mostly is because of their diet, of
Mhm.
what they're eating. But when animals eat what they are designed to eat, for example,
Mhm.
ruminants like cows are ruminants. They have four stomachs and chew their cud, and it goes up and down and up and down and up and down. When cows eat grass,
Mhm.
they stay healthy. Yeah,
Right. Right. And what we're feeding them in these, they call them CAFOs, right?
right.
These
Mm-hmm. You
small,
say
or
CAFO, I say CAFO.
oh, CAFO, yeah. Potato.
Potato, potato. Yeah.
I never can remember what it stands for.
Um,
Confined animal something. I forget every time. Anyway, it has to do
factory
with,
farms. Factory farms.
there we
Right.
go. There
Yeah.
we go. These large animal factory farms, they're not eating grass.
No.
They're eating grains, and they're
Mm-hmm.
eating all these highly processed foods. So I think what is so funny is that um, humans, our rate of chronic disease has raised since we've been eating these highly processed foods,
Yes.
and so are the animals. So the animals are eating a processed diet, and then we're eating processed diet, and we're all sick. Right? We're all getting sicker.
We're all getting sicker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate. So,
Mhm.
so we want to choose foods that are whole and real. We've been talking about that all the time.
Mhm.
And when we eat animal products, we want to eat animals that have themselves eaten well, that have been healthy and eaten what they're designed to eat. So, we got chickens running around getting their own food outside of a barn, so they're getting the sunlight and exercise and activity that they need to stay healthy. And we've got animals grazing, or cows grazing on pasture lands. Actually, fish swimming in seas, that are cold, and they can get their own algae rather than being in farms and getting corn thrown to them.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Or if you're like, I think we have friends who hunt,
Yeah.
and they're eating elk, and they're eating
Oh, yeah.
animals that are really in the wild, and
Mhm.
they're lean. They've got better omega-3s, or more of them, and just a healthier all around. So,
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at my husband used to be a really big duck hunter, and
mm,
he still duck hunts periodically, and the meat is so different than like a chicken from the store, right?
mhm.
These birds that fly, they're very muscular, um, and they're healthy, and I mean you can just tell the difference, and it's
Yeah.
like you said, it's a much leaner meat, and it's a much smaller proportion, right? These
Mhm.
birds aren't these giant animals that can't hold themselves up, right? They're the natural size. It's almost like it's a natural portion control. You buy a store-bought turkey or a bird, it's going to be so big that it's almost like it teaches us to just eat more because there's so much there.
Mhm,
But when
mhm.
you have a single bird that was, a mallard or whatever, shot out of the sky, it's a small, once get everything whittled down to just the meat, it's not very much meat.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
it's lean. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And yeah, great point. So
Mhm.
I always want to be friends. So my husband, our family's never been into hunting and fishing, but it's nice to be friends with people who do.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, but to your point
Mhm.
about, you can see the difference. Yeah, when you crack open an egg from just farm raised egg,
Mhm.
chickens, versus an egg that, from a chicken that's been running around and doing their own thing. You can see the difference in the yolk, right?
Absolutely.
One is pale
Mhm.
and lusterless, and the other one is this bright, beautiful, orangey, golden
Yeah.
yolk. And so you can see that difference, and the difference is more omega-3s, better, healthier fat in there. So
Yeah.
same thing when you put other meats side by side. You can see
Mhm.
that the marbling is the fat, which is unhealthy. It's ectopic fat that's laid down when they're eating too much food or
Right.
the wrong kind of food, versus this other leaner meat that doesn't have that in it. So you can side by side see the difference, and taste the difference, really.
Mhm.
And some people say, "Oh, I don't like that," but believe me, you can get used to the difference. Yeah.
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 Just like everything, right? If we taste it and we continue to introduce our taste buds to it, we get accustomed to it and we start to appreciate the different flavors. Because I know that, yeah, hunting, that big game flavor can be different, uh,
Hmm.
but it's really good. It's
Yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah. It's really good.
Yeah.
So the other thing I want to he points out that it's a little more expensive,
Mhm.
but I think we've said before, and it's worth repeating, that it's really important to invest in what you ingest.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Invest. That's not original to me, but I've repeated it from somewhere. Invest
Mhm.
in what you ingest. So
Mhm.
important, because, yeah, food matters and what you eat matters. And it is the best way to take good care of yourself and
Mhm.
expect your body to function well if you put good stuff
Yeah.
in it. And yeah, we might be paying more now at the grocery store. Actually, food prices are going up, but it's so worth it, because if we don't pay now, what are we going to do?
Right. We're
Pay
paying later.
Yeah.
For sure. That's the way I think about it. I think of it as an investment in my health now that I won't be paying for years down the line. And I actually think, it's kind of like if you invest your money now, it pays bigger dividends down the road
Mhm,
the earlier you
mhm.
invest. And it's not just our health that we're investing in. We're investing in our quality of life. Right. So to me, I think of it as a couple different things. Like, am I sick or am I well? That's one
Mhm.
thing. But can I do the things I want to do? Do I have the lifestyle that I want to live? So I don't want to just live a long, long life. I want to live a healthy life until the day I die.
Right.
Right.
That's
Active,
right.
healthy life. I don't want to fizzle out for the last 15 years of my life
Right.
on 20 medications and not feeling well. So that's I think we have to think of it more than just do you have a disease or not, but what's your quality of life, right?
Mhm.
Can you do the things you want to do all the way to the very end?
Right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So, and if I don't know if there have been studies like this done
Mhm.
as far as investing in healthy foods versus getting chronic diseases, how much it costs to pay for a chronic disease versus how much
Right.
it costs to pay for healthy food. So, do we want to pay for food, or do we want to pay for medicine and doctor's visits and hospitalizations and et
Right.
cetera, et cetera? So,
And the
yeah.
time, right? That's another piece, right? Can you put a dollar amount to the time that
Mhm,
you're spending at the doctor's
mhm,
offices or waiting in line for your prescription or
mhm.
in the hospital or recovering from an illness or something? That's a whole nother piece to it.
Right, right. And I know this is kind of off topic, but it's all in the
Mhm.
same.
Mhm.
There's a great reference resource called Environmental Working Group, I think.
Mhm.
Is that what
Yeah.
it's called? But
Mhm.
anyway, they look at what is important to. They have that dirty dozen, right? What's
Mhm.
important to buy organic versus it's okay to um, get away with not buying organic as far as produce is concerned.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's called Environmental Working Group. Yeah, so that's a
Mhm.
great resource. They update their information regularly, at
Yeah.
least annually. And so maybe you can't buy everything organic, okay, but
Mhm.
if you could stick to the dirty dozen, that's going to benefit you greatly. And then when you do buy meat, buy the grass-fed, free-range, wild
Yeah.
meat. And since we're not eating a ton of meat,
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be that expensive,
Right.
right?
Right. You're going to save in your pocketbook because you're reducing your portion of
Mhm.
these foods. And if you're getting rid of the junk food, right, the
Right,
processed food, you're
right.
saving. I
Yeah.
know that tends to be cheaper because that's what they put on sale a lot. That's how they get
Mhm.
you at the grocery store, right?
Right.
$5 for 12 packs of soda or something like that.
Right.
Um, but but ultimately, you're going to save money on all those processed packaged foods. And then,
Right. Because if I'm not buying soda,
right.
I have the $5 to spend on a pound of grass-fed hamburger or whatever. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm curious, do you have advice for the people watching if they are just getting started trying to clean up the healthy food that they're eating, right? They're eating
Mhm.
whole foods, but now they really want to start to clean it up. You mentioned the Dirty Dozen, and that's a great guide for produce and like
Mhm.
fruits and vegetables on
Mhm.
which ones you really should try to buy organic whenever possible. But if they're just getting started with, let's say, their meat and dairy,
Mhm.
where should they start? Like if they had one category, eggs, dairy,
Mhm.
meat, chicken, where would you say would be the
Mhm.
most important animal group to start with,
Right.
right? Would you say? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, I would say it's whatever you're eating the most of, maybe
Mm,
is where I'd start. And then, and it can be very confusing. For
mhm.
example, when you buy eggs in a grocery store, I mean, they have free range or cage free or,
Pasture.
yeah, pastured. So,
Yeah,
because you can be caged outside of a cage, but still not free range,
that's
right?
right.
Yeah. So it can be confusing. And unfortunately, you know, our regulatory systems do allow for this confusion in the vocabulary, which is or the lingo, which is kind of sad.
Mhm.
But maybe the first thing I do is upgrade my eggs, and
Okay.
I get, if when I buy eggs, I want to buy pastured eggs,
Right.
or you go drive down the road and you see the guy, the person with it says, you know, free range chickens or whatever.
Fresh
And
eggs.
so you could actually go and talk to that person and say, hey,
Mhm.
how do your chickens eat? And the proof is in the pudding, or the eating of the pudding, I think is the way that goes. Or the eating of the egg. You crack it and it's this brilliant,
Right.
beautiful color, then you're getting good stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. So we oftentimes think that eggs coming from a cute little farm stand or the neighbor down the road is going to be all that they've eaten everything that we want them to eat. But it's possible that they're filling it in with
Mm-hmm.
grain,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
They might be free range. They might be running around the yard, but then they're eating a bunch of grain also because that's how the farmer keeps them healthy maybe during the winter. So what would you say that is the balance there?
Right.
Hopefully we can find 100% just free range, right? And they're
Right.
eating.
Well, right. And I know that animals need to eat during the winter too, right? And so, yeah. So that's a good question, but maybe just talk to the farmer and see
Yeah.
what
I
they
think it's a
do.
great idea. We forget that we can do that. You just can go ask, right? Like, hey, what do they
Right.
eat?
Yeah.
And I know in Oregon and in my neighborhood, you can have chickens in your yard. You can
Yeah.
have a small chicken coop as long as you don't have any roosters.
Right.
You
We
can
used
raise.
to have chickens, and they kind of laid off during the winter time.
They do.
And,
Mhm.
they got laid off.
Pun
Yeah.
intended. Yeah.
Pun intended. Yeah. So,
Right.
which was very interesting. And I guess there are ways to keep them laying, which is interesting and makes me think of, wonder and have more questions, maybe for another discussion. But
Right.
yeah. But anyway, I probably start with my chicken eggs, and
Mhm.
then I might go to, just depends on what you're eating. You can find grass-fed and finished beef, ground beef, fairly easily in grocery stores right now, because I think the consumers are getting a little more hip to the jive and demanding a higher quality product. What I do know is you're not going to find grass-fed, grass-finished at any fast food places.
No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's maybe not really totally meat. It may not be a whole food.
I wouldn't think.
Right. So that's interesting to know that you can pretty much find, because I know you can find they call it grass raised, like grass raised beef, but that doesn't mean it's finished, right? And the finishing is when they fatten the cow out. So it can start off on grass for its first couple months of life, and they can call it grass raised. But how did it finish its life?
Right.
That's where they're really fattening it up with grain. So like you said, grass raised and grass finished. And that's great to hear that you can find that in the grocery store.
Yeah. Yes.
Mhm.
And then the other thing is, make some friends that that enjoy fishing and hunting, and maybe get you into a little barter system or something like that.
Yeah, let's go back in time and like swap your salmon for your chicken eggs or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that in mind, Rachel, tell us, have you gone through all your Thanksgiving leftovers?
We I had a lot of people in our home over the weekend, so we just kept eating it up. It's pretty much gone. So I think tonight is just gonna be really simple, a lentil soup. I have some red lentils and I think I'll put some celery and onion, and I don't know what else I'll throw in there, but it's probably gonna be pretty simple.
Simple.
Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. Yes, the leftovers are gone. And actually, I hesitate to say this, but I even threw some away. Yeah, I don't like to waste food, but on the other hand,
Yeah.
We celebrated, we had some traditional foods that we don't usually eat. And so,
Right.
that was one and done.
Yeah.
And then
Gone.
whatever was, they're
Yeah.
gone.
Send it home with some people and right.
Or in the compost pile.
Right.
Or maybe the dogs a little bit, just a little bit, because I
Oh!
want them to eat what they're supposed to eat. But
Right. But that's a really great point that we don't want the holidays to just keep going and
Yeah.
going and going. Because what started off as a one-off to
Mhm.
choose these foods we don't eat normally and every day,
Yeah.
it just drags on for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And can do some, damage to your waistline.
It can. So actually, on that note, I am actually, today's a fast day for me. So so I'll probably drink some tea and with a little ginger in it. And I'm actually looking forward to that right now. But I don't fast, all the time. But today, after this nice long holiday, and it's not because I went crazy overboard,
Mhm.
but it is a little time of just getting back on track. And
Yeah.
so if you want to know about fasting or anything further, feel free to call us at Oregon Weight and Wellness, and how to get back on track with healthy habits and improving the quality and wellness in your life. Give us a call, 971-273-7143. Is that right? Yeah, that's it.
You got it.
All right, Rachel, thanks so much for this discussion, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds great.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.